To the Robb Lett Show. I'm your host, Robb Lett. Today I'm at the Georgia Unite conference, and I had the opportunity to meet someone here that someone actually told me I had to speak to. It's so funny. I had about 4 speakers that I was already allotted to ask some questions of, and then this woman, Jennifer, who was the speaker here, said, you have to sit down and talk with Mallory Staples. So I tracked her down, and so here she is, Mallory Staples. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. This is an incredible event. It's going off better than I even expected, so we're doing well.
Awesome. So Mallory, first, give me a little bit about your background.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a mom. I always say that's the best thing about me. Regular, average, everyday citizen. And I made a run for the 6th congressional seat here in Georgia this last cycle and did not make it, did not get the nomination after the primary. But you know, it's so interesting. The story didn't stop there. So I have gone on from there to take a job with the Freedom Caucus Network, who we now have Freedom Caucuses on the state level in 7 states, and Georgia is one of them, thankfully. Awesome. So I will be involved in this next session supporting the Freedom Caucus members here in the state of Georgia and just continuing the fight. You know, we have a country to save, as we all like to say, and this is how I can serve. I thought it might be holding a congressional seat for the 6th District of Georgia, but it was not, and so you just keep going. You know, you look for the next thing and see where you can be of help. So,
well, the tide is turning, so I have hope that you'll be back where you want to be.
All right. Thank you.
So Jennifer mentioned that there was something I had to ask you about in regards to immigration, and she says you got a unique insight to this.
I do. It was almost a year ago that I went through a group that had supported me in my campaign called the Veterans for America First. They took us to the border, and actually one of the gentlemen who handled our tour and educated us on what was happening is Tom Homan, who is a featured speaker here today in the Georgia Unite conference. So I'm very excited to reconnect with him because the experience that I had at the border really goes beyond what my words, like I would like to tell you and anyone who listens, I cannot do justice to what I saw, but I will do my best. We knew that the Biden administration had opened our borders. They, terminated the Remain in Mexico policy. They basically undid what had happened under the Trump administration, which was the further securing of our borders, building the wall, beginning to build the wall, and strong immigration policies. And Biden stepped in. They absolutely undid that. It was like opening a floodgate. And so we wanted to go down. That was a talking point for all the candidates in the race, but I wanted it to be more than that. I wanted to know, I wanted to see, I wanted to hear, I wanted to experience it so that I could speak to it more accurately. And so the Veterans for America First allowed me the opportunity to do that. And it was life-changing. So Mark Morgan and Tom Homan did our tour, and they have been in charge of under 6 administrations, ICE and Customs and Border Patrol. So quite the authority on what's going on. And day one, we pulled up in our van. We are on the Rio Grande River, and not too far from the point of entry. But even in the light of day, we watched illegals coming across in rafts. You could see them on the other side of the river, all throughout the trees. We watched our Customs and Border Patrol agents perform a catch and release. We literally watched them detain these people. Well, no, that wouldn't be the right word. We watched them have contact with these people, interview them, and then release them back. They just released them. Wow. They are hamstringed, hand-tied. They cannot do their job. And the suicide rate, when I interviewed Tom later, I'm so interested to hear what it was, because at the time that we were there, which I said was almost a year ago, 31 of our Customs and Border Patrol agents had committed suicide. That is a unheard of statistic. They are totally demoralized. They cannot do their job. They've given their lives to defend our borders and secure our sovereignty as a nation, and they aren't being allowed to do it under this administration. So they're very disheartened. There's other contributing factors, which we saw live and in person. So we experienced all this during the day, and Admiral Kubik was there, who's also involved with the Veterans Group. He said, listen, Mallory, if you want to really see what's going on, you need to come out with us at night. And I said, really? I feel like I've seen so much already. And he said, no, you need to. So he had a security detail take us out at night. And we went to the point of entry on the Rio Grande River. We were there from like midnight to 3 or so. And we saw a truck full of coyotes pull up and literally shove women like into the river. Like they just pulled up on the curb, shoved them into the river. So there was this major distraction here. And obviously the patrol agent agents, Customs and Border Patrol, they go in this direction, and then we look down and you can see the stream of people crossing.
Wow.
Just a couple hundred yards down that way. A woman and her child almost drowned. As we mentioned to you earlier, we could see the snipers on the other side in the trees. We had night vision goggles. They sent the security team down ahead of us to be sure the area was secure. And then when we came down, we saw them in the night vision goggles. And to be honest, the cartels running the show down there, they weren't super interested in hurting us because we weren't stopping the process. We were there more observing. And they even told us that the numbers are so high right now with the illegals breaking into the country that and I mentioned how demoralized our Customs and Border Patrol agents are, that the cartels and the Border Patrol agents will communicate, and the Customs and Border Patrol will call and say, how many are you sending over tonight? Like, how many are crossing? Because we want to know. It takes so many hours to process every single illegal who comes across. They want to know how many days are our agents going to be on duty. Like, I need to be able to tell them, you can go home in this many days. I mean, it's like that. It's such we're being overrun, and we watched as 14 or 15, I can't remember exactly, unaccompanied minors were processed. And they're processed through HHS. They're handed off to these NGOs, some 30-something of them. And then at that point, they had lost 145,000 children. They had no idea where they were. And I often say, I grew up with a culture that valued all life to the point that when children went missing, they were on milk cartons and everyone was like looking. And literally, these NGOs have no idea where at the time, and I'm going to guess that number's probably doubled because the human trafficking is through the roof, child trafficking is through the roof. Almost 150,000 children missing, and we watched them processing people. We saw them being given these same little same colored bags. They're almost like the recyclable bags we use at the grocery store, like the Grain Publix bag or something like that. And they had their phones in there and their money cards and all these things. So it was just unbelievable to see. They have rape trees where you just see the carnage of how many thousands of women no one knows where, because the cartels are running the border. That's who's in charge, whether it's their drones, their people. I did a podcast during the campaign and went off air, and 2 of the 3 people that interviewed me said, I just want to thank you because we work part-time with Customs and Border Patrol in California, and you are absolutely right. Nobody's talking about this. They own the points. Like, the cartels move whatever drugs. I mean, we're seeing with the fentanyl numbers, it's the #1 killer in the United States right now because Chinese fentanyl is coming through our borders undeterred. It's absolutely unbelievable. So it's a human rights violation. It is a crime crisis, what's happening, whether it's the actual cartels. We now know these countries are emptying, Venezuela, they're emptying their prisons into our country. You've got that. You've got guns, which is also contributing to the crime. And you have an election integrity issue. And this is one of the things I learned from Mark and Tom, is that illegals are counted in the census. And a lot of people don't know that. And the census determines districting and how many seats are allocated in red or blue in the House. So they are literally, the Democrats are which is why they're so for our open borders. They're picking up, and one of the earlier speakers today, Trevor Loudon, acknowledged this, that if we don't win in this election, if we don't win and send leaders who will make these changes and these reforms and protect our country, we will never elect another Republican president again or senators from these states. And so that's what's happening. They are counted in the census, and the Democrats are picking up seats, and they know it, so they love it. And then the other thing is that these illegals are given a direct pathway to citizenship, and that is unsustainable. And they are, I say as a mom of 3, I have 3 dependents. Well, the American taxpayer, I think the number is guesstimated at 5 million. You can check me on that at this point. Have inherited 5 million dependents, more dependents who will draw from the medical, draw from education. They will draw down on the apparatus that is the U.S. government that the taxpayers are funding, and they will not pay in because they don't have to pay taxes. They're not on the books. So you have this unsustainable crisis on so many fronts happening right now. And then I think to add insult to injury, I flew home on a really, really early flight because I had so missed my children. I've been down there for 3 days and wanted to get home to my family. And I went to the airport under the dark of night, really, 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 really early, and was on the flight, went through security with illegals that had the same bags, looked exactly like the people I've just watched me process. And they showed a piece of paper. As a U.S. taxpaying citizen, I had to show my driver's license. They held up some piece of paper and were on the flight with me. So they really are giving them flights, and they get to pick where they want to go. And they are flown into these U.S. cities and acclimate, and I don't know how much they acclimate, but become part of our culture. And it has to be dealt with immediately, because it will be the thing, I believe, that breaks our nation to the point that it's irreparable.
Wow. Well, that is amazing. That is an amazing experience. I thank you for sharing it. I know you're the MC today, so I know you're busy. Thank you, Mallory.
Thank you for listening.
Actually listening to you speak today. It was a pleasure meeting you.
Thank you. Likewise. Thank you so much.